I'm saying,
increase. No increase. I can hear.
And I'm saying, Ghanaian Times, Wednesday, October 15th, 1997. World News: U.S. and Britain cashing in on revived arms trade.
Two permanent members of the
Security Council, yes.
International, you can't video back up 9 minutes. I can't be here, Samoa be here, medical boss. America, America,
Russia can hold me. No, I can't say we are in Government. Russia, which is the Soviet era, was the world's biggest supplier, exported a modest $3.4 billion of military equipment each year. And what I'm saying,
modest, modest. Now at Yaman, no, Susan Asungeni assassin. As you name I may a free second horseman, the red horse, the human. So what fat as we do if we are see. Intimidate see. As he says, and Jack Christopher, I'm sure your name. And yes, upon Coco could be saying your name. We are that and Coco have service from us. What better sit as soon as you will see your breath. The numbers of a piece of yesterday. Now, your video, the one and only video, maybe. Wow, can't I tell you,
I also the Gravitas Plus show America benefit from war.
How America benefits.
Oh, sorry, how America benefits from war.
No, I'm a problem. So,
video, I have 9 minutes. I don't want to message Kakrabi Kemtel. Of a message, we say we send a phone, so I'm a stress there. And young kind, but Kakraba, you know, phones are not children. Or say, is a Marco Russia number meeting, a Marco na edie na Russia and Glasgow Makwaba na dem na kokom. Good afternoon, Hebrew teachers. I'm watching you live from Cape Coast. Please, I want to know if you have a branch in Cape Coast. I'm Davidson. Joseph David. Yadi kan ya announcement. You know about December and a Cape Coast branch no. Yeah, Babasha said this message and the teaching is deep and hidden. I want to be part of it. Please, how can I join the campaign? My name is Parkwesi of Dunkwa. Parkwesi, I will phrase 0244-6665 and I'll be was it such a program like this is what we want our fellow TV stations to be hosting. Let's wake up Africa, for there is more hope for the future. My name is Richard Gamfi Brimpong from Kwabenya. Bless up Royal TV. But video no. Also, please, good afternoon. Say, I want to I want to know, did Christianity is fake? Okay, I want to know if Christianity is fake or real. Papa, me copy BMY or Pabin from Western. You call your first video, Gravitas Plus, how America benefits from war. Yeah, quack share, and then the only video, and then it be the actual of us. People, so maybe awesome, meeting.
The Americans have left Afghanistan and given the Taliban a gift, their war chest, state-of-the-art helicopters, attack planes, rifles, machine guns and Humvees, the most advanced American weapons. And this is not a first. The United States of America is a repeat offender when it comes to arming criminals, terror groups, rogue regimes, sometimes by design and sometimes by default. America feeds the global war machine. American weapons are being used to undermine what American governments say they are fighting for: international peace and security. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Weapons sale has always been integral to America's foreign policy. For decades, Washington has sold arms and ammunition to almost any country that wanted to buy them. In some cases, it has done so without even notifying the US Congress or the American public. This trend began in the 1970s, at the height of the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union. The Nixon administration started shipping weapons to counter Soviet expansion. The policy was called the Nixon Doctrine. The aim was to substitute American weapons for American boots, send weapons to allies instead of sending troops to their lands. This led to a tenfold expansion in arms sale. America shipped weapons to countries like Ethiopia, Laos, Cambodia, South Vietnam, and Iran. Yes, Iran. The United States sold billions of dollars in weapons to the Shah of Iran during the 1970s. The sales included everything from cargo planes to supersonic interceptors, phantom bombers, and surface-to-surface missiles. Iran bought a total of $15 billion of the most advanced U.S. weapons, $15 billion, and we're talking about half a century ago. America did this in the hope of protecting its oil supply from Iran and to stave off Soviet influence in the Persian Gulf. It suffered an extreme blowback. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution took place. Iran went from being a monarchy to an Islamic republic, from an American ally to an adversary. The new regime took control of all these American weapons and used them against the U.S. Something similar happened in Panama. For most of the 20th century, Panama was an American ally, a recipient of billions in military assistance, and a major base for the American military. In 1989, General Manuel Noriega, a CIA asset for 20 years, came to power and threatened American interests. This prompted a U.S. invasion, a clash that featured American troops facing American weapons. This is the flip side of indiscriminate arms sales. But Washington has not changed course. In the 1980s, the U.S. sold weapons to Iraq to keep a check on Iran, only to end up confronting Iraq after its annexation of Kuwait. Guess which weapons the Iraqis used? Around the same time, America sold missiles and tanks to Somalia, only to launch a military intervention in Somalia in 1992. In Afghanistan, the U.S. armed the Mujahideen to help them fight Soviet troops. In 2001, it invaded Afghanistan to fight the Taliban, which was a product of America's support to Mujahideen and complicit in the Al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks. Even after 9/11, America's approach did not change. In fact, the U.S. went into an overdrive. It sold weapons to everyone and their grandmother in the name of bringing peace and stability. Look at the numbers. Since 2001, the United States has sold conventional weapons worth almost $200 billion to 167 countries around the world. Many of America's clients are autocratic, with long records of human rights violations, infamous for violently suppressing democratic dissent. There are simply too many red flags. Who are these shady clients? We'll give you the names in just a bit, but first look at this chart. It assesses the risk posed by America's customers, both current and former clients. The framework is based on the stability of the regime, how the government treats its people, and if the country is involved in conflicts at home or abroad. The score ranges from 5 to 15. The US wants you to believe that it's bringing peace and democracy to the world. The truth may be the exact opposite. The low-risk countries have been sold the least weapons, as you can see here. The high-risk countries have got the maximum. Which are these countries? Iraq, Libya, Yemen, the Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the most volatile countries on this planet. They're all in possession of American weapons. Then we have Saudi Arabia, currently embroiled in military operations in Yemen, Tunisia, and Syria, a country with a track record of human rights violations and the opposite of a democracy. It's a prized American client. What does all of this tell you? That the US promotes conflicts rather than stability. It fuels wars with its weapons. And this policy remains irrespective of who's in power, Democrats or Republicans. For all his tall claims of getting the U.S. out of global conflicts, Donald Trump signed arms deals at a record pace, generating hundreds of billions of dollars for American defense companies and contractors. I'll give you the numbers. In 2017, he cut a deal worth $110 billion to Saudi Arabia alone, along with 157 sales worth more than $84 billion to 42 other countries. He may have been against sending America to war, but he ensured the coffers of the American war machine do not dry up.
Tremendous investments into the United States, and our military community is very happy, and we want to thank you and Saudi Arabia. But hundreds of billions of dollars of investments into the United States and jobs, jobs, jobs.
Trump said it, others did not. That is the only difference. All U.S. presidents create wealth from arms sales, from Richard Nixon to Nobel Peace Laureate Jimmy Carter, from Ronald Reagan to Bill Clinton, from George Bush to Barack Obama, and now Incriminator-in-Chief Joe Biden. All of them have made it clear in policy documents that economic benefits are the biggest consideration while approving defense sales. It is about business. It's also about influence. Arms sales bring strategic gains for the US. Let me explain this. Number one, they shift regional balance in favor of American interests. Number two, they help the US exert influence and leverage over countries that buy American arms. Number three, they give America access to overseas military bases to maintain shadow supremacy. And number four, they help in building pressure on client countries to vote with the US at the United Nations. This strategy has made the US the global hub of arms trade. The US accounts for 33% of the global arms trade. Russia has 23%, followed by China, France, and Germany. How do America's clients use these weapons? Mostly against their adversaries, some against their own people too. There's glaring evidence to prove how American arms sales have had economic, political, and social repercussions in recipient countries. How they've led to humanitarian violations, atrocities, organized crime, acts of violence. The Taliban's arms bonanza is just the tip of the iceberg. Time and again, US weapons have fallen into the hands of non-state actors. In 2014, the US airdropped weapons and supplies in the Syrian border town of Kobane. The weapons were meant for Kurdish fighters. They ended up in the hands of the Islamic State. The ISIS even released a video thanking Washington for the gifts. In 2019, an investigation revealed that arms provided by the US to Saudi Arabia and the UAE ended up in the hands of Al-Qaeda and a variety of terror outfits in Afghanistan. The same year, another investigation revealed that American-made weaponry had fallen into the hands of rival militia groups in Yemen. These groups used US-supplied weapons against the US-backed government in Yemen. The list is long, the point is short. When you make a habit of arming rogue regimes and non-state actors, you are the biggest threat to the world, not the people who wield your weapons. The United States cannot claim to promote human rights while selling weapons to human rights violators. The United States cannot claim to safeguard regional security while actively intensifying regional conflicts. And the United States definitely cannot claim to be the torchbearer of peace, stability, and democracy while also being the biggest arms dealer in the world. World peace does not suit the US defense industry, so the cycle of war continues.
Gravitas Plus, co-presented by Skoda, made of smart imagination.
Hey, the list is long, but the point is short. Abujafo and some of them are so. Na yakase bobo sa nsebe manika yi nko and na sorry. Na me question is say mo amose mo dia sundue eba wiase. Adin tell say mo yakode. Na mo yakode no a mo de kohi. Na man no mu say mo akode nto me pe bi to ana mo ka chom say mo akode me pe bi to no. Isi dan na ntokwa eba o man nim. Na say mo am hu dua broni. Moko atifi ko hu isu na mo ba na afo be bisa say hwan ya. Mo say de mo nja say wona mo ko gu e. Mo ja akode na gum. Ofa. And so mo hu America aban bia babia no mampani bia babia na kodie dodo a wa ye ne waton ene aman ho do mo ton de mo na de ba kwa da me hwa na de say we share diplomator ye West Africa ha ye de asset ye dealing sa a ye tobi but democracy ene de kuye na America se no ka se no se ni na mienu ye ntokwasem ye ammunitions ana fe democracy ona mu de hadi pa obi ase when you be say obotaye apart from say profit no money free no we say ni pay you so into botaye a culture mo yes animal we no find say now maybe e mu na kan say we ase e am training na yes and na we we who say be this am botaye be bi ko mo bo e we ase no o ma fa say o mo dia e ka who say America onu na o ye adwuma senior beast no our asen yes privilege and then be America go ya no kind of Revelation 13 the war in global affairs yes na say Vatican the religion e take over ewiase now na ababo ame now so we true any akondi a why not and you I hope so what my for say pa and you know the course no no and for bia yes e bia na nkofo complain so obi yare pa referee mu na okodu hospital na nurse ni no ho no phone oh no na phone na we na ya hu bia abre
ɛnɛ na obi ba bi etu a yɛ ɛba bɛ kum obi saa na deɛ wɔn mu ni sɛ wɔn kan sɛ at the end of Second World War wɔn bɛ strengthen communism ama wɔadu point a yɛbɛsɛ hia religion na yɛde aba ɛmɛ ni du nti hu ahwan mu hɔ ɛna Vatican kuya any America kuya woman instigate wɔn ka wɔn ntambo ano a wɔn de communism bɛ hwɛ a sad religion da so we do the final stage of ewiase no nneɛma a ɛsɛ esisi and the religion asa be take center stage ama ɛnɛ no pope nso apagya ne mu yakɔ Glasgow you issue statement on the about it so on the 12th on the president in the Omako Yomudi Oma Samba the technical team one shishi and see Gusua you basically answer you do Nafi Yatibi and the yow made man over here send an American say the bed I will be out with the red horseman. Any Juba OD ever assassination. And next week no be to us. Okay. You be can the essay. You be call Vatican. You be come Miami Abibri. You are YouTube so. And the am demand this. Of a Poco Danko executive director advance feed the mind movement. I'm ordained and was in Red Horse, second horse and Revelation chapter 6 verse number 3 and 4 and no home and come on and William Prapradini or Prapradiamana. Next week, you know, you know, boy, we are not for you, Vatican also. The horse, some yama, hold of you somewhere. Everyone's and Red Horse Erano, and Muana, Yagusu, and I said, you may be a coson. What to me, when I said, I call Israel. No family messages kakra na gwaton de kakra entro so enfama mom we edi free okay amfa ni dey no amba was the world leaders have returned from Scotland. I have a message na hambo amadini was the world leaders have returned from Scotland can offer tells us what transpired. Tell Offer to tell us when Yah shall come to the earth, since he knows when Yah is coming. Yoko from Inyan, Dintra, working live with my crew. Thank you. Come fast. Okay. Young family into us. Was it please? You have let us know that Jah made Africans, and where does the Caucasians are from, and why are they after we the Hebrew? Oh, okay. Oh, so maybe of our country. Watching was a good afternoon. Wake up, Africa. Good work done from Alhaji Kamel Goso. Alhaji, you tell catch papa. I guy be our repair TV me. Radio set ni ADB ewo Goso market ni mo no. Aha, o se bomo de na wo na mo kam humum na mo tikuo no. Ana guy bi ti ase wa bisa. I don't want to from mom say hey. In fact, this is my first time watching this program. Oh, and bra what should be mapa. I'm highly educated by this program. SK Amwa Agona Swedru. SK Nami Aduma Kwasiada bia 12 to 2 share. Memenda 2 to 4 share. Anadu bia so Royal TV. If you buy love hoko ni na so no obe share. Right there for messages no ensi wa hana yemfa we so entro so. You be a habre na yakọ yeme ho enya hapa. We say I'm Francis minipa no. Agbenyaga from Yeji. You said you na maboni. Was for Israel. You are more than apocryphal. Do the do. For many of the so-called pastors will change and come to know the Creator. It is obvious that they hadn't taken their time to understand the word pastor, because if they did, they wouldn't have. At the end, they're more than you do. Of a mom, my patron, it is obvious that they hadn't taken their time to understand the word pastor, because if they did, they wouldn't have allowed themselves to be called with such a title. Such is not even biblical. Anything that has passed
is no longer in existence. However, the pastorship ended since the time when Moses died. However, we no longer need pastors in this era, but true teachers of the word of Yah, and that is why pastors can't interpret the revelation from the Bible. Francis Agbenyaga from Yeji.